Hi everybody. Today we are going to learn the Union Executive, the second chapter of the civics. Now the Union Executive consists of the President, the Vice President, and the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Now in India we have President, not the presidential form of government. Then when we talk about the President, he is the Chief Executive of India, or we can call it as he is a constitutional or nominal head of the Indian Republic. And he is head of the state. At the same time, he is also known as the first citizen of India. Now, he has certain powers. He can use his powers directly, or he can use with the subordinate officers, or through his subordinate officers he can use his powers. Now, what are the qualifications for the president to be elected as a president, or we call it as what is the qualifications needed for a presidential election? Must be a citizen of India. He should be a citizen of India. He must have completed 35 years, must be qualified for election for the member of the Lok Sabha, and he should not hold an office of profit. These are the qualifications needed for a president's election. Now, what is his term? The term of his office is 5 years. He can be re-elected also. Okay, he can be re-elected also. At the same time, if he wants to resign before the expiry of its term, sometimes some presidents may resign from the office. Such a resignation letter he should give to the president, and the vice president, and the vice president will communicate with the Lok Sabha speaker. Now, what is known as electoral college. Now, who elects the president? Now, who elects the president? The joint body of elected members, like member of the parliament, MPs and MLAs, which elects the president. Okay, that is known as the electoral college. The joint body of elected MPs and MLAs, which elects the president, is known as the electoral college. What we call it as electoral college. Then what are the procedures for the president's impeachment? How the president is removed from his office? Sometimes he is removed when there is a violation in the constitution. Okay, when there is a violation in the constitution, he can be removed, or proven misbehavior, he can be removed. Then incapacity, incapability for treason, bribery, in all these cases, the president can be removed from the office. Now, what are the procedures for the president's impeachment? The resolution to impeach the president may be moved by both the houses with a notice of 14 days has been given. Then this list of charges may be supported by 1/4 of the total members. Then it is passed by 2/3 majority of the total members of the parliament. Then when it is approved, when it is finalized, that final statement also is approved by the 2/3 majority. So what are the procedures for the impeachment? The impeachment procedures can be taken within 14 days by either both the House of the Parliament, and it is passed by 2/3 majority, and finally it is approved also by the 2/3 majority. Now let us learn about the need for indirect elections. Now, what are the need for indirect elections? The state assemblies are included in order to make the president more truly representative of the choice of the nation, As the population of the states and the strength of the legislative assembly is not uniform, the system of one man, one vote cannot be adopted. So that is one reason. Then direct election would involve tremendous work, time and expenditure. Then comes, it would be difficult to provide an electoral machinery for the election in which millions of people would have to participate. If the president is elected directly by the people, he can become a rival in the center. This is against the parliamentary system. Now let us learn about what are the powers of the president. Now what are the powers of the president? The president has certain powers vested in the hands of the president only. Now there are certain powers like executive powers, legislative powers, discretionary powers, and emergency powers vested in the hands of the president. First, let us learn about the executive powers. What are the executive powers of the president? He is the administrative head. We can say that administrative head appoints and dismisses the president and the council of the ministers, appoints and dismisses the high officials, then controls the state government, power to administer union territories. These are the executive powers of a president. When we talk about the administrative head, the administration of the country runs in the name. All orders are issued in his name. Now, appoints and dismisses the prime minister and the council of ministers. He appoints the leader of the majority party to the Lok Sabha or as a prime minister. Okay. He appoints the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha as a prime minister, and on his advice, he appoints the ministers and the council of other ministers. Then also, he appoints and dismisses the high officials like Attorney General, Controller General, then Supreme Court judges and High Court judges and state governors. The ambassadors and high commissioners are also taken by the president. And he controls the state governments, and when he controls the state government, when there is emergency in the state. Then power to administrate the union territories. All the union territories are taken care by the president. Next, we learn about the legislative powers. What are the legislative powers of a president? Power to summon and prorogue the parliament or to dissolve the Lok Sabha. Okay, the power to summon the parliament is subject to the condition on that 6 months shall not intervene between the last sitting in one session and the first sitting in the next session. The president has a power to dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of the Prime Minister before the expiry of its term. Now, nomination of members of the parliament, like in the Rajya Sabha, he nominates 12 members, and to the Lok Sabha, he nominates 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community. And to address the parliament, that is also his legislative power, address the parliament during the first session of the general election. Then ascend to legislation. These are some of the legislative powers. It also comes to the issue of ordinance. When the parliament is not in session, he issue an ordinance. When the president is satisfied that immediate necessary legislation is required, then he uses his legislative powers. Now, what do you mean by an ordinance? An ordinance is a presidential decree having authority of law. In other words, it is a temporary law which has the same status as an act of parliament. Now, let us learn about the discretionary powers of the president. Now, when the president uses his discretionary powers, the president's role became very important when no single party getting majority. So when no single party gets majority, he uses his discretionary power. Then also, when the president also uses his discretionary power during the time when the prime minister has losing the no confidence motion. So during that circumstances, the president's role also very important under the circumstances when a prime minister, after losing no confidence, asks for the dissolution of the house. So in these two times, the president uses his discretionary power. Now let us learn about what are the emergency powers of a president. What do you mean by emergency? When there is a sudden or unforeseen action comes, problem comes, the president uses his powers. Now, what are the three types of emergencies? The first one is the national emergency. The second one, the constitutional emergency. And the third one, financial emergency. National emergency means what? National emergency comes when there is a war or external aggression, armed rebellion. In such situations, the president uses his power. Okay, now, when it comes to the constitutional emergency, when there is a breakdown in the constitutional machinery, the president uses his power, okay, emergency power. Then comes the financial emergency. When there is financial emergency, that means the instability, the financial instability of the country, during all these cases, all these times, the president uses his power to control the country in a better way. So, with the help of the parliament, he take up all the decisions within 1 month or 2 months. It should be approved within 1 month during the national emergency. So when there is constitutional emergency, the duration can be till 2 months. So like that, when we are talking about the union executive, he has certain powers, and how he is elected. We have already learned who is the chief executive of the country. That is our president. Then we learned about his qualifications. Then what is the need of indirect election. Then we learned about what are the procedures for impeachment. Then the last we learned about the powers of the president and the discretionary powers of the president. These are the main points we need to learn in this lesson. So let me wind up this lesson here, and you learn and come in the next class so that we can continue with the third lesson, that is the union executive, the prime minister. Thank you.